Finish line now has the ability to group tasks underneath engagements. Engagements are part of your client setup. You can also set up engagements from within the finish line module. To start setting up engagements, you must go to Setup Utilities, Due Date Setup in Utilities, and turn on the engagement field. The default is to hide the engagement field in the Manage Edit Deadline screen. So we've turned that on. You also need to create some master engagement types. Those can be created on the fly. However, it's probably best if you come into your setup screen, the last tab, and create some primary service types. These types should encompass the various tasks that will be performed as part of the engagement. So, for example, Comp Year End is an engagement that might include the year-end financial statement and whatever tax services are also involved in the year-end services. Okay, so you set these up initially, and they become the master type. And then to reiterate, make sure that you are displaying the engagement field in your global due date setup and permissions tab. That's the only thing that you need to do in your setup. Once you've done that, the Manage Edit Deadline screen will expose engagements. And here, for All Rise Robes, we're looking at the year-end compilation engagement. I've chosen to identify my engagement by year. When you do that, each year a new engagement is created for the next year. However, if you don't identify your engagement by year, it's open-ended. So for most accountants, they're going to want to associate an engagement year with their engagement. Let's go ahead and add a new engagement for a new client so you can see how this works. Adding new record. I'm going to choose this client, and we'll just pick any staff, and we'll 2011 year, and let's do an audit. Now that's our primary task, and maybe as part of our year-end audit we have an engagement. Okay, now no engagement exists on this client. All right, so I'm going to double click to add an engagement. I've already set up a master audit type engagement, and I'm going to say year-end audit and tax. Now that optional description is unique for this particular client's engagement. Again, if I don't choose a year, it's going to be open-ended. So I will choose a year. When I roll forward my tasks from one year to the next or from one period to the next, a new engagement will be created if I select the option on the cloning tab. I'll show you where that is in a minute. I'm going to close the screen, and now you see that that engagement was associated with this particular client. Okay, and task. Now let's take a look at All Rise Robes. We have already set up some tasks that are associated with an engagement. Here they are, and I'm going to focus on that group by clicking into the engagement field, right-clicking and choosing equals. And now I'm looking at a filtered set of tasks that are all associated with the same engagement. Well, let's take a look. You can see here's my budget, 1.5 hours for the F1120. That's a Florida corporate return. Moving to the next item, I'm doing the year-end compilation that has an 18-hour budget. And the first item is the corporate 1120 with an 8-hour budget. You've got your budget versus actual for each of these individual tasks. For instance, the comp year end, 18 hours budget, 17.5 actual. But what about the engagement overall? So if you jump back to the client, manage client contact screen, accessed from this icon here, okay, and I've looked up All Rise already, and I've selected, or I'm going to select client engagements, click OK. What this does is it shows all the engagements that are in use for this particular client. The comp year end is the one we're interested in. Now look at the bottom of the screen, and what it's done is it's rolled up the engagement results, budget to actual. So it's in effect combining the hours, budget and actual for all three tasks. If I choose the staff summary mode, it's now showing me that overall it was a budget of 27.5 hours, and it actually took 28.5. So that's some nice roll-up information there. Where else do engagements impact you? Well, on the calendar, they're displayed right underneath the task. It shows you the name of the engagement right here. If there is no engagement, it simply says no engagement selected. On the notification screen, the engagement for each row is displayed at the bottom left of the screen, right next to the progress bar. So let me close those two screens and show you one additional way you're impacted. Let's go back to due date setup and utilities. If when you set up your tasks, you take the time to associate let's pick the 1120, you take the time to associate a work code with it. And furthermore, now you also have an association of a specific engagement with a task. So you really can speed up your time entry. For example, if I pick all rise robes and I pick the year-end 1120, which I know is part of an overall engagement, it automatically fills in the work code and the engagement for me as a result of selecting that task. So the time entry element gets greatly expedited. This also applies to the timers as well. A minute ago I mentioned something about engagements and year-end cloning. Over here on the Due Date Setup and Utilities Cloning tab, there's an option to create new engagements for tasks using engagements with years. So if you do have engagements, you want to roll them forward, make sure you check that box when you're cloning. Finally, engagements are also integrated in with your due date reporting. There are two special grouping options: partner contact client engagement displayed and partner client engagement displayed. These groupings will now show engagements on the report. So let's go ahead and choose ignore completion status for this period. And I happen to know that this involves 1120s, 1120S's, and the year-end compilation. And what you can see is a report. At the top, you'll see all rise robes, and here are the three tasks that are part of that comp year-end engagement. They're grouped together. And the engagement is displayed, the engagement title is displayed as comp year-end. Also, the progress is shown on the far right. So that gives you a little idea of how engagements come into play with the due date management system. They're a great way for grouping tasks together. You can report on them. They're also a simplified way to record time when you use engagements, and you can roll up the total engagement budget for each task into one overall engagement budget. Okay, thanks for tuning in.